What if I told you that your life will never change? Until you do. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop blaming circumstances and discover the one thing standing between you and your dreams. There comes a moment in every person's life when they look in the mirror and realize something undeniable. If I want a better life, I have to become a better version of myself. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because life does not respond to wishes, it responds to action, and the truth is simple. Your life won't change. Unless you do, you can wait for the perfect opportunity. You can wait for motivation. You can wait for someone to save you, but nothing changes until you change. The results you see today are the product of the standards you accepted yesterday. If you tolerate excuses, you get a life filled with them. If you tolerate fear, you get a life controlled by it. If you tolerate average, you live an average life. But the moment you decide to raise your standards, everything shifts. When you choose discipline over comfort, when you choose growth over familiarity, when you choose commitment over excuses, you unlock a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. Transformation isn't a miracle. It's a decision you make every single day. You don't need permission to recreate your life. You don't need approval to dream bigger. You don't need guarantees to take that first step. All you need is the courage to say, I'm done living below my potential. Do not underestimate the power of small changes, a tiny shift in your mindset, a small upgrade in your habits, a slight improvement in your routines. These are the seeds that grow into a completely different life. Your future is shaped not by hope, but by your willingness to evolve. So stand tall, take ownership, step into the version of yourself that your dreams have been waiting for, because your life won't change unless you do. Real change begins long before anything in your outside world shifts. It starts deep within, at the level of your beliefs, your thoughts, and the identity you hold on to every day. Most people try to change their lives by rearranging circumstances on the outside, hoping a new job, a new relationship, a new city, or a new opportunity will magically transform everything. But nothing external has lasting power unless the internal foundation is upgraded. When you see someone who has transformed their life, what you're witnessing is not luck. It's an inner evolution that eventually showed up in their environment. Every breakthrough begins in the mind before it ever becomes visible in reality. The way you speak to yourself, the way you interpret your failures, the way you respond to challenges, these invisible patterns shape your entire life. If your internal dialogue is filled with doubt, hesitation, fear, or excuses, your actions will always reflect that. You can't outperform the identity you hold on to. You can't build a successful life while telling yourself you're not capable. You can't build confidence while repeatedly acting out of fear. The life you desire requires you to start becoming the person who believes it's possible. Change begins when you rewrite the story you've been telling yourself for years. Most people stay stuck not because they lack potential, but because they are emotionally attached to who they were yesterday. They protect their comfort zone even when it's the very thing suffocating their growth. They cling to old habits, old patterns, old ways of thinking, hoping life will magically improve while they remain the same. But growth demands letting go of excuses, letting go of limiting beliefs, letting go of the version of yourself that's settled for less. The moment you release what no longer serves you is the moment you create space for who you're meant to become. Changing your inner world means taking full responsibility for your emotions instead of blaming circumstances. It means becoming aware of the thoughts that disempower you and choosing thoughts that strengthen you. It means replacing I can't with I can learn. Replacing I'm not ready with I'm willing to start. Replacing I always fail with this time I will grow. Your beliefs act like a filter. Whatever you believe becomes the lens through which you see every opportunity or obstacle. If you believe you're capable, you act like it. If you believe you're powerless, you shrink. Change requires you to challenge the beliefs that limit you and consciously build new ones. And once the internal shift begins, your outer world slowly starts rearranging itself to match the person you're becoming. New habits emerge. New choices feel natural. New opportunities appear because you finally recognize them. Life responds differently because you're showing up differently. When you change internally, your energy changes, your decisions change, your level of certainty changes. People treat you differently because you treat yourself differently. The world mirrors back the identity you embody. Real change doesn't happen the moment your circumstances shift. It happens the moment you shift internally. Only then does everything else begin to follow. People often wait for motivation as if it's some magical force that will suddenly appear and push them into action. They wait to feel ready, to feel inspired, or to feel confident enough to begin. But waiting for the right feeling is one of the most effective ways to stay stuck exactly where you are. Motivation is temporary. It rises and falls like a wave. If you depend on it, you'll only take action on the days when energy is high and emotions are perfect. Real progress doesn't come from those moments. Real progress comes from the days you don't feel like doing anything but choose action anyway. When you act first, the feeling follows. Action creates clarity, momentum, and confidence, not the other way around. The biggest mistake people make is believing they need motivation to begin, when in reality, motivation is a result. It's something generated after you take action. The first step may feel uncomfortable, messy, or uncertain, but it opens the door to the next step. And once you're in motion, the resistance that felt so overwhelming at the beginning starts to disappear. The mind quiets down. Fear loses its grip. Those small wins you create become fuel that builds motivation from within. Every time you take action while your mind is telling you to wait, you train yourself to become stronger than your excuses. Action breaks the cycle that keeps you trapped. When you spend too much time thinking, doubting, analyzing, or planning, you create mental friction. You start imagining everything that could go wrong. You picture yourself failing. You overcomplicate simple steps in your head. And the longer you think about it, the heavier the task feels. But the moment you start, even in a tiny way, the weight lifts. Movement creates relief. Movement interrupts fear. Movement shifts your emotional state far faster than waiting ever will. A simple action, even if it's not perfect, pulls you out of your head and places you into the flow of progress. People who achieve meaningful change understand this truth. Consistency beats intensity. It's not about doing everything in one day. It's about doing something today and then doing something again tomorrow. You don't need massive leaps to transform your life. You need steady, deliberate steps. When you act consistently, even at a small scale, you are building an identity of someone who follows through. And that identity becomes more powerful than motivation. It becomes a habit. It becomes who you are. You no longer wait for inspiration because action becomes automatic. The belief that you must feel good before you begin is one of the biggest illusions holding people back. Discipline is what replaces that illusion with truth. Discipline means doing the work regardless of your emotions because your future demands it. And the paradox is that the more disciplined you become, the more motivated you begin to feel. Motivation grows from self-trust. It grows from momentum. It grows from seeing yourself take action day after day. When action becomes your foundation, motivation becomes your reward instead of your requirement. Your standards are the invisible lines that determine the quality of your life. They dictate what you accept, what you reject, what you tolerate, and what you demand from yourself. Many people believe their life is shaped primarily by their circumstances, but in reality, their life is shaped by the level of standards they consistently operate from. If you expect little from yourself, you get little. If you allow excuses, you live a life full of them. If you tolerate disrespect, you receive more of it. Your standards form the foundation of every decision you make, whether you realize it or not. When you look closely at anyone who has created significant change, you'll notice that their turning point wasn't when their environment improved. It was when their standards rose. They stopped accepting average behavior from themselves. They stopped settling for comfort. They stopped allowing the old version of themselves to dictate their future. The moment you say, I refuse to live like this anymore, you draw a line in the sand that separates who you were from who you're becoming. That single moment can redirect an entire life because it shifts your mindset from acceptance to determination. Standards are powerful because they create automatic boundaries. When your standards are low, you entertain distractions, you waste time, and you let fear make decisions for you. But when your standards are high, certain behaviors simply become unacceptable. You no longer negotiate with your excuses. You no longer engage with people who drain your energy. You no longer allow procrastination to guide your days. Your standards start filtering your choices, your habits, and even the people around you. Suddenly, what once seemed good enough no longer feels aligned with the person you're trying to become. Raising your standards also changes the way you show up for yourself. You begin to demand more from your effort, more from your discipline, more from your consistency. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions and start acting from a place of responsibility. When you increase your standards, you shift from hoping to achieving, from dreaming to doing. You start following through because you no longer want to break your own promises. Self-respect becomes your driving force. And when you respect yourself, you naturally elevate every part of your life. Your standards determine your habits, and your habits determine your destiny. If your standard is to wake up late, skip responsibilities, and live reactively, your future will reflect that. But if your standard is to remain committed, growing, learning, and disciplined, your life will rise to meet those expectations. The most successful people aren't the ones with the easiest lives. They're the ones who refuse to lower their standards when life gets difficult. They remain committed even when motivation fades. They stay focused even when distractions appear. They choose growth even when comfort calls them back. The life you desire requires a version of you with higher standards than the one you currently hold. When you elevate what you expect from yourself, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, you elevate the opportunities you attract. You elevate the relationships you build. You elevate the direction of your entire life. The world responds to the standards you set, and when those standards rise, everything around you begins to rise with them. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't appear in a single grand gesture or one heroic effort. True change comes from the accumulation of small, consistent actions that compound over time. Many people underestimate the power of these tiny daily improvements, dismissing them as insignificant. Yet it is these small, deliberate choices that shape the trajectory of your life. Each day, each decision, each habit is like a seed. If you nourish it consistently, it grows into results far beyond what you imagine. The key is not in doing everything at once, but in improving a little every day. Knowing that momentum builds slowly but relentlessly, consistency creates a rhythm that becomes unstoppable. When you take repeated steps toward your goal, even if they are small, your mind begins to accept these behaviors as normal. You begin to identify as the type of person who shows up, the type of person who persists. The initial discomfort of a new habit or skill may be intimidating, but the more you repeat the action, the easier it becomes. Over time, small actions compound into massive results. The person who wakes up 30 minutes earlier each day to read or exercise may not notice immediate change, but 6 months later, the results are undeniable. That tiny shift accumulates into knowledge, strength, and discipline that fundamentally transforms who they are and what they can achieve. Small daily shifts also build confidence. Every step forward, no matter how minor, reinforces the belief that you are capable of growth. Progress becomes evidence of your potential. You begin to trust yourself because you see proof that you can follow through. This trust compounds, creating momentum that carries you through challenges and setbacks. In contrast, those who wait for dramatic breakthroughs without taking small steps often remain paralyzed, expecting instant success without putting in the necessary effort. Success is rarely a leap. It is a series of incremental steps that eventually create a leap that is visible to everyone else. The beauty of small, consistent improvements is that they are achievable for anyone. You don't need extraordinary talent, immense wealth, or perfect conditions to begin. All you need is the willingness to make slightly better choices than you did yesterday. These small actions are sustainable, and their cumulative effect transforms not only your results, but also your identity. By consistently doing more, learning more, and pushing slightly harder each day, you gradually become a person who naturally embodies the habits, mindset, and behaviors of success. Your identity and your results start aligning as one. Momentum is the invisible force that turns small actions into massive transformations. One small improvement encourages another. One positive choice inspires the next. Before long, what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable because the chain of consistent actions has created a force greater than any single effort could achieve. Life doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. The key to transformation is not a dramatic overhaul, but a STA. DY, relentless commitment to daily improvement. Each day becomes a building block, and over time, those blocks create a life that reflects your highest potential. Many people wait for permission to change their lives. They wait for validation from others, approval from authority figures, or confirmation that the timing is right. They think they need a roadmap handed to them, a guarantee of success, or a sign from the universe before they can take the first step. But the truth is, you don't need anyone's permission to reinvent yourself. Growth begins the moment you decide to stop living below your potential and take ownership of your life. You are the only one responsible for your future, and the moment you accept that responsibility, the possibilities become limitless. Reinvention requires courage because it involves stepping into the unknown. It means leaving behind habits, routines, and mindsets that have been comfortable but no longer serve you. Many people cling to familiarity because it feels safe, even when it keeps them stuck. But growth never comes from comfort, it comes from challenge. By deciding to take charge of your life without waiting for permission, you step into your own authority. You claim the right to define who you are, what you want, and how far you will go. That choice alone sets you apart from the majority who continue to wait for circumstances to change instead of creating the change themselves. Taking ownership also means embracing responsibility for every aspect of your life, your successes and your failures, your growth and your setbacks. When you stop blaming others or circumstances for where you are, you free yourself from limitations. Every decision, every action, and every thought becomes a tool for shaping your future. Reinvention is not about waiting for opportunities. It is about creating them. It is about recognizing that the power to transform your life has always been in your hands, even when you doubted it. Once you accept that truth, hesitation and fear lose their grip. You also begin to recognize that waiting for permission is a form of self-limitation. When you allow external factors to dictate your actions, you surrender your power. By choosing to act independently, you reclaim it. You realize that no one has the authority to define your worth, your potential, or your direction. The moment you internalize this, you begin to operate from a place of empowerment. You take action even when conditions are imperfect because you understand that perfect conditions are rare. Waiting for them only delays the transformation you are capable of today. Reinvention is a continuous process. It doesn't happen once and then stop. It is a commitment to evolving into the person you are capable of becoming. Each decision you make, each habit you form, each skill you develop is a step toward a higher version of yourself. And the remarkable truth is that the world responds to the person you choose to become. Opportunities, relationships, and resources align with the energy, focus, and intention you bring into the world. By taking ownership without seeking permission, you open the door to a life that reflects your true potential, a life that no one else can define but you. As we reach the end of this journey together, remember this truth: your life won't change unless you do. Every breakthrough, every dream, every goal begins with a single choice. The choice to take responsibility, to take action, and to commit to becoming the person your future deserves. Change is not somewhere out there. It starts inside you, in the small decisions you make every day, in the standards you set, and in the courage to move forward when fear whispers wait. So stand up, take ownership, and step boldly into the version of yourself that you know is capable of greatness. You have the power, you have the ability, and the only thing holding you back is the decision to act. Let today be the day you stop waiting for permission, stop waiting for motivation, and start becoming unstoppable. Thank you for listening, for committing to your growth, and for choosing to invest in the most important project of your life, you. Keep moving forward, stay consistent, and never forget the moment you decide to change, the world around you begins to change too. Goodbye for now, and remember to embrace your journey with courage, determination, and unwavering belief in yourself. Thank you.